Percy's office was open and bright, filled with ferns, pastel paintings of nature, and ringed with bookshelves. The shelves behind his pastel blue desk were filled with the usual psychological scholarly tomes, but the shelves throughout the office were filled with every child's book imaginable. A few were even stocked with board games as well as small toys and puzzles. It was a place meticulously designed to feel safe for children. And yet, all of this was just a stage on which Percy had to perform his best. Here, children threw epic tantrums, violently lashed out at him, broke pots for plants and toys for children, and cried in deepest sorrow no child should ever have known. This is where Percy's temperance mattered the most. These children needed an adult that could appear more disarming than often their parents or guardians were capable. This seemingly bright, happy, joy-filled place knew nothing but misery and hung heavy on Percy like a bridle. Yet today, its weight had never felt this heavy, and under it, Percy felt himself collapsing. In front of him sat Parisia, this tiny child who was now in more dire need of help than any patient before. She was in her denim overalls, hands folded, smiling politely at Percy as he smiled back. Her hair lay slightly a mess on her shoulders, telling of a girl who, up until that moment, had been playing normally, like nothing at all was abnormal. They had created a tenuous understanding of honesty. In here, there was no need to lie. Percy promised that he would always tell her the truth so long as she told him the truth right back. Often, she told him she would not answer because it would have to be a lie, and she didn't want to lie to him. I have a feeling that you haven't been entirely honest with me. He smiled sweetly, his voice holding a bit of levity, as to be disarming. I haven't lied. I kept my promise, she stated, agitated. Not lied. Maybe just didn't tell me the whole truth. Perhaps held some things back. Maybe didn't tell me everything. He cocked an eyebrow, still smiling. Parisia lowered her gaze to hide her face a little. It's okay. I know some things are hard to talk about. Maybe some things you don't want to talk about. He paused before his tone turned earnest. Maybe some things someone told you not to talk about? But you already asked me who, she explained, throwing herself back in the chair. Well, maybe it's not someone I know about, but what about someone I don't know about? Someone you haven't told me about? He leaned in only slightly. He didn't want to seem threatening. We've talked about your parents and your relatives, your friends and your neighbors, even strangers you may have met on the street. But maybe we haven't covered everyone. Is there someone you feel the need to hide? Someone who told you to hide them? This was again met by silence as Parisia dodged her eyes away. I have a feeling you have a special friend. A friend from the internet? His words caught her attention for a second, though she quickly dodged her eyes away again. Maybe someone nobody knows about because you've kept them a secret all this time. Maybe someone who's been telling you about these special rituals. Again, silence. He waited a bit to give her time to process and not place too much pressure on her. Let's try this. He radiated a sense of warmth, continuing to smile while speaking in a soothing tone. Why don't you tell me where you got the ideas? And if it's not from someone else, just say so. I promised I wouldn't lie, she nearly muttered under her breath. He settled back in his seat and gave her some space. I know. And I have the feeling this person told you, like the rituals, if you mentioned them, there would be consequences. Again, silence filled the room. Let's just assume there's this other person that tells you to do things. Let's say that person tells you there are consequences for not doing those things. Can you, without having to mention this other person, tell me what those consequences really are? Do they threaten to hurt you if you don't complete the rituals? There was extreme hesitation in the girl's voice, but not from apprehension to speak, more like confusion as to how she could describe it. I'm, well, there's things I can't do if I don't complete the rituals. Things they won't let you do? He asked. There was more hesitation. Things I won't learn how to do. He pushed on. And these things were important enough to risk your friend's life. I didn't hurt her, she snapped to attention, her tone more pleading or excusing than anything else. She was never in danger, I keep telling you. Yes, I understand you truly believe that. I don't think you're lying. Percy stayed calm and coaxed her on. And maybe this other person convinced you there was never any danger. Again, the child hesitated, careful not to specifically confess there was another person. I can do it. It's true. Death is an illusion. There's no reason for anyone to die. That is some pretty heavy worry, Parisia. Percy's face softened in sympathy. I'm not worried. I'm positive. I've seen it. Again, she became excited, this time like a child who had learned a new trick and just wanted to show someone. The waiting room? Percy probed, hoping it would open Parisia up. Buster died, and there was nothing I can do about it. Someday, Mom and Dad will die. Or Jessica. Jessica could die. Next time, I could save them, and they won't have to die. I have a feeling that this other person is the reason you're worried about people dying. Parisia, sometimes you'll meet people who tell you what you want to hear in order for them to get something out of you. You mean lying, but he's not lying. He's just like you. He never lies. In her excitement, Parisia confessed exactly what Percy wanted to hear. He didn't seize that moment. It was very important for Parisia to feel like this conversation had no consequences. He knew that if he immediately jumped on her slip-up, it would make her feel cornered and she'd retreat. You know, when I was your age, I lost a dog named Rawhide. He just got old and lived out his time. I remember wondering if I had done anything to bring Rawhide back. His death left a hole in my life that felt like it couldn't be filled. If I had the internet when I was your age, I'm sure I would have asked every person in the world for the secret to death, that I might become Dr. Frankenstein, master over death. His words seemed to soften Parisia up a bit. The little girl squirmed like she was about to speak, but she didn't know what to say, so Percy pressed on. I understand the desperate desire to want to do something when you feel so helpless. There are many things in this life that are outside of our control, and it makes us quite naturally feel small and defenseless. He paused to let her settle for the next part. And there are people out there that look for others suffering to take advantage of them, that can say and even show you things that make you feel like there are answers and that you're not helpless. But you mean lying? Parisia immediately jumped on his words. I've seen it. I've been there. It's real. Percy gave her another moment to settle as she was starting to become agitated. I'm sure it must feel real, or maybe even seem real, he explained calmly and slowly. There are people in this world who have practiced a long time at making the impossible seem real. But these are just illusions they've created to convince you that it's real. However, you must understand, no one in this world knows what lies beyond for any of us, and no one can offer to show you. The person you've been talking to has no more authority over life or death than I or even you have. You don't know that. Parisia sniffled slightly, fighting back tears as she was totally crushed under the weight of his words. I am certain of very few things in this world, but among them, and you know you can trust me, I assure you, no one can bring back the dead. The silence was deafening as the tolling of a bell. This was a hard conversation for adults, let alone children. I know this other person has shown you amazing things. I'm sure of it. I know this other person has offered you amazing things. But it's extremely important that you understand they can't